So it's been about 6 months since I quit my 9 to 5 job, my corporate job that I really hated. At the time, I was making like $5,000 with my corporate job. And now, since I quit my job, I've been able to scale my income. I'm making like $10,000, $15,000 a month, which means I doubled, almost tripled my income since then. And that would have been impossible on my previous job because they were giving out like 2% increase rates on your annual income. And that's pretty much like inflation. So I was essentially like not making any more money every year. So to be able to double and triple my income is just absolutely insane. So if you're watching this video, I presume you hate your job, you're trying to quit and you want to do YouTube instead. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm going to break down a step by step. So for a bit of context, what I was doing at my 9 to 5 job is I was a bookkeeper, kind of like an accounting associate, and I just didn't like my job. And I was completely stuck and I was broke and I had no path to make more than maybe $60,000 a year. So that's kind of when I realized that I had to find my way out, start a business, start a YouTube channel and make more money and do something that was more fun, that was actually enjoyable. So I was completely burnt out. I hated this corporate job and I actually went to college and I got a business degree with no tangible skills. So a business degree is about as generic as it gets. And for me to get a good job, like a 6-figure paying job, I would have had to do something else in college. But because I had a business degree, which is just generic, it doesn't mean anything. Then I was pretty much stuck making like $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And so that's kind of when I decided to start my business to make it out, make more money, get more freedom, all that stuff. But the thing is, I couldn't just quit on the spot, not without a proven model. And that's just because I needed something to replace my current income. I couldn't just stop paying my rent, my food, all that stuff, my car. I couldn't just quit on the spot. I had to find a proven model that I could consistently make more than I was making with my current job so that I could quit, so I could feel safe enough to make that leap. And so I wanted to find something that replaced my current income, that was consistent, and on top of that, something that was scalable so that I could make more money and get more freedom. And so here's kind of where YouTube comes in. And YouTube is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole thing. And so this is kind of what I'm going to explain in this video. So my plan to quit my corporate job was to build a cash flow business that made me about $10,000 a month. That was the goal when I quit my job. And I did this with a small YouTube channel without ever getting lots of followers, lots of views, going viral, getting lots of attention, becoming famous, none of that stuff. Like my videos don't get that many views at all. But I never had to worry about AdSense, becoming famous, getting sponsorships. I never had a single sponsorship on my channel, optimizing for CTRs, average view duration, retention tactics, none of those metrics. I did this with a very small YouTube channel without ever worrying about all this stuff. Most cookie cutter advice on YouTube is like how to get good average view duration, get your 1,000 watch hours so you can get monetized, all this like horrible advice. I did that without worrying about any of that stuff. And how I did that is because I built a business on top of YouTube. And so I flipped the entire equation, how people, creators, influencers, whatever you want to call them, think about making money on YouTube. I changed the entire equation. And so for me, YouTube is just a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole thing. How did I do this in real life? So the only thing I knew at the time was web design and I guess accounting, bookkeeping, but I wanted to stay away from accounting. I hated that stuff, boring. I just couldn't deal with that stuff anymore. So I thought, I know web design. I'm going to start a web design agency. And for me, when I started, I didn't know anything about YouTube, getting clients, and all of that stuff. So the only thing that came to mind is I'm going to do cold outreach. This is how I'm going to find clients. So I did lots of cold outreach, cold calls, cold emails, Facebook groups, Instagram DMs, you name it. All those cold outreach methods, I probably tried them myself at some point. And this kind of worked in the beginning. Like this kind of took me to getting $500 to $1,000 a month with the web design agency, getting those very low cheap clients. I was cold calling businesses, people cussing me out on the phone, people that didn't want me to sell them. But eventually, after tons of volume, I was kind of making like $500 to maybe $1,000 a month with the agency. At this point, I completely burnt out. I started hating the agency, which sucks because I also hated my 9 to 5 job, but I now had more headaches, clients, cold calling people, cussing me out, all this sort of nightmare clients. And so this kind of when I realized that I wanted to start attracting clients. This is when I started a niche YouTube channel around web design. And so this is when YouTube completely transformed my business, my web design agency. I made my first $8,000 in a single month with only 96 subscribers on YouTube. Like I couldn't believe it at the time. Like this was insane. I had like maybe 4, maybe 6,000 views that month. And I made $8,000 that month by selling websites to people that were attracted to my YouTube content. People were landing on my YouTube channel. I didn't have to do cold calls and all that stuff. That's when I realized that YouTube is one of the most powerful ways of getting clients for your business. But the thing is, most people never even find out in the first place because they only optimize for views and subscribers. And so they treat YouTube as the business itself. They're trying to get a lot of views to get paid AdSense and make sense on every 1,000 views they get on the channel. But how I did it is I had an agency, a business, and then it just so happens to be that YouTube is one of the most powerful ways of getting customers. So this is how I acquired my customers. And so this is kind of a puzzle. If you think about it, this is just the YouTube stuff. YouTube is just one piece of the puzzle. If you kind of think about it, like this right here is my YouTube channel. So if this is a puzzle, YouTube is one of the pieces. This is how I get clients. But here we have the business, the offer, the traffic, the sales page, all that stuff. YouTube is just one of the pieces. It's a really important piece, of course, but I'm not treating YouTube trying to get views, go viral, become famous, none of that stuff. I'm treating YouTube in a completely different way. So that's how I was able to make my first $8,000 in a month with only 96 subscribers on that small YouTube channel. So if you're thinking about creating a small YouTube channel about a skill, a passion, web design, fitness, whatever that is, and you want to help your audience and make money, here's how to position your YouTube channel. Here's kind of what I call my micro YouTube funnel. This is the funnel that I use to scale my YouTube channel past 10K a month. And this is kind of how I think about it. So how we do this is by thinking about YouTube differently. We do this by flipping the entire equation. So a typical influencer creates YouTube videos, tries to go viral, tries to get as many views on those videos as possible. And from that, they get a small cut from YouTube based on the ads they can run on those videos. And that's how they make money. Now, how I do this is completely different. I start with my business, the why. Like, why am I creating this YouTube channel? Who am I trying to help? For me, it was web design. I'm trying to sell business owners websites. And so I start with the business, the offer. Who am I trying to help? And then I create my offers, which then I create content so I can drive traffic to those offers. And then once I have traffic in those offers, that's how I get sales. And instead of getting pennies on thousands of views, I can make way more with my services. At the time, I was saying like $1,500 websites, $2,000 websites. So that's how you can see with like 6,000 views. If you only close like 3 clients, that's like $6,000 to $8,000 in a single month. That's the leverage. That's how you can scale a business with YouTube. Okay, now how did I actually do this? Like, how did I manage my 9-to-5 job while running a YouTube channel, while running a business? How did I actually do it? What you have to realize is there's a lot of people that are trying to do this full time, creators, business owners, and this is all they're focused in. And so if you have a 9-to-5 like myself and you can't just quit everything, not pay rent the next month, all that stuff, then you're gonna have to do more in half of the time. So if you think about it, you're gonna be competing with full-time creators and business owners, and they're spending all their time, all their attention into the business. And so how I did this is my job started at 9 a.m., finished at 5 p.m. Every day after 5 p.m., I would work maybe 4 to 6 hours on the business every single day. And so for me, I pretty much had to work twice as hard as everybody else. And this is just because I was managing both things. I had my full 9-to-5 job that was really stressful, and I had to build content, build my business, the offers, the websites, do service delivery, all that stuff after 5 p.m. And so this is essentially like having 2 jobs at the same time, my 9-to-5 job and my agency with YouTube. But that's what it took. And maybe if you're stuck in a job that you hate and you're trying to find a way out, what I would recommend is don't just quit, but start a side hustle, a YouTube channel, a business, an offer, and do that as you have your 9-to-5 job. Now, what ended up happening when I started my agency with my 9-to-5, and this kind of how I was able to quit, the progression was I was making $5K with the job, and I was making like $500, $1,000 when I started doing cold outreach. So I was making a little bit of money, but not much. But when I supercharged it with YouTube, I started making like $5,000 in a month, $8,000, $10,000, $15,000, until finally I was making more money with the business, the side hustle, that I wasn't even spending that much time compared to my 9-to-5 job. I was spending 8 hours a day on my 9-to-5 job and only 4 to 6 on the business. That's when I realized that I had to quit so that I could keep running the business, the stuff that was making me more money, the YouTube channel. And so if you're thinking about quitting right now, what I would recommend is if you have your job and you're starting to make money with your YouTube channel or your business, make a plan. For me, what that looked like, and that's just because I like safety. I didn't want to make that leap of faith without having savings, without having a proven model, kind of what I was talking about right now, is in my plan, I wanted to have 6 months worth of savings saved up before I quit my job. And I wanted to make sure that my business was consistently making for 6 months more than $5,000 a month in profit. Because what ends up happening is a lot of people, a lot of new entrepreneurs, new YouTube creators, when they start a YouTube channel, they might hit $10,000 in a single month, but they might not be able to maintain that consistently month after month. So I know somebody that made $10,000, but the next month they went back to $1,000. So if you quit your job when you're feeling that $10,000 a month, which feels amazing, but you quit your job right away and the next month you make $1,000, $1,500, it's gonna hit you. It's gonna be tough on you. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that every month I was making $10,000 consistently for 6 months straight. So I saved up 6 months worth of expenses and I was making consistently over $10,000 a month for 6 months. And that's kind of when I knew that I had to quit my job. But there it is. That's how it's been going ever since I quit about 6 months ago. That's how the business is going. And if you want a more in-detail video where I break down stuff more in detail, I've made it and I'll link it just right here.